Hey guys, and welcome back to Hoosier Hardware. And over the years, I have sold dozens now of computer builds, and I was looking back at several of the old listings, and what really struck me is that I don't actually remember a lot of these PC builds that I had put together. Now, in a lot of cases, the picture sort of jogged my memory, but a lot of these builds, I honestly just don't really remember actually having my hands on them and, putting them together. But the second thing that really struck me was the pricing of these things, especially the ones about 2 years ago. The pricing, even by today's standards, would be in some cases just an outright steal, considering the GPUs paired with the CPUs, storage, power supplies, and all that. So today I wanted to take a little bit of a walk down memory lane and look at a few of the past PC builds that I've sold roughly about 2 years ago, give or take a little bit. Now, as we get started here, make sure you go down below. Hit that share button, that like button, that subscribe button, all those things very helpful. But also, more importantly, comment down there and let us know about a PC build you've purchased either recently or further back that was a good deal, and let us know all about that. But with that, let's look at these older listings that, depressingly, would actually be good buys even today. So the first PC we are starting off with is this Intel i5-6400 system. It's paired with an RX 480 4GB card. That is a reference model. Has 12 GB of DDR4 memory, 120GB SSD paired with a 1TB hard drive. It looks like Windows 10 activated, which is usual for me. And the power supply is a Gigabyte PW400. I really hope that thing is still alive. Like, the Gigabyte power supplies have not had great press lately. So that motherboard PCB is green, and that's because this was, I believe, an HP transplant. I could be wrong on whether or not it was an HP transplant, but this was back when HP actually had systems that you could take a pre-built motherboard and just sort of put it into your own case, and the transplant process actually was really simple. The Cooler Master case, I don't actually love this case because the airflow is a little bit suspect. It looks like it would have great airflow, but the mesh on the filters is very, very restrictive. So it's just okay. For a system like this, it's just fine. But aesthetically speaking, the system looks really solid. So this system was listed at $400, and with a lot of the builds that I actually throw together, I end up building in about $50 to $100 of wiggle room on the pricing, and that's just so when somebody does offer something a little bit less than what I'm actually asking, I can sometimes accept those offers. Now, I don't have in front of me exactly what I did end up selling this system for, but I'm guessing I probably sold it for actually $350. And if this system was on Facebook Marketplace today for $350, I would actually probably go ahead and buy it. And that mostly comes down to the GPU, which is completely unsurprising. That 480 4GB card is probably worth on eBay, the open market, $250-ish. If you're selling it on a local marketplace, you might only get about $200, at least in my market. Tends to run a little bit cheaper than elsewhere, and that's just, I think, because of a somewhat rural setting. But then on top of the $250-ish GPU, you get a complete system beyond that. You're getting an SSD, motherboard, RAM, CPU, power supply, case. You have everything there to have a system up and running. To be honest, if this thing was $350 on Facebook Marketplace today, I'm pretty sure I could buy it and then just flip it without actually doing anything to the system other than maybe reinstalling Windows 10, and I would likely make a profit. So next up is this i7-3770 system. This is, of course, Ivy Bridge architecture there. The GPU is a GTX 1060 3GB model. It is an HP OEM model, which, if I remember right, I actually had a couple of these 3GB HP OEM GPUs at one point. I think this is the one I picked up for $60 in a local sort of meet and exchange. So I want to say I paid $60 for this GPU. I could be wrong on that. It has 16GB of DDR3 memory. It's a 4x4 kit. It actually looks like, based on the pictures, it's a mismatched kit. The power supply is a 325 watt PSU, which is enough for this PC. It's not really giving me much overhead, but it is enough for this PC. Again, Windows 10 fully activated. Looks like I have an Intel stock cooler on the 3770, though the older stock coolers used to be a little bit beefier, so that was probably fine. I will say this PC did come back to me later on because it had a motherboard die on me, so I did end up actually recasing the GPU as well as the CPU into, I want to say, an Ivy Bridge Optiplex is what I ended up replacing it with. And the buyer ended up being okay with that maneuver because they wanted it back quicker. I offered to just buy them a new motherboard and put it in that case. They said they would rather just have it back quicker, so that's what we went with. Plus, the Optiplex is a little bit smaller of a chassis than the one here anyways, and I did end up reusing this chassis. Regardless, it did sell for $350. I was able to track that detail down from the Facebook chat. So $350. I'm curious what a 1063 gig card goes for now. So it looks like the GPU is about $200, give or take. Obviously, being an OEM model, the GPU might actually be a little bit cheaper than that. The ones on eBay are right at $200 for a 3 gig 1060, but they're also of better, cooler design. That being said, $350 for the whole system, even if we discount the GPU to like $175, is still a solid deal if you could find something like that today. And that's not necessarily just because of the GPU, but by the time you find an i7-3770, you find a 240 gig SSD, you find a motherboard, you find 16 gigs of RAM, power supply case, all the other components you need for the PC build, you're likely to end up spending more than $350. So once again, if this PC, as I sold it, was on eBay today or on Facebook Marketplace today, I would absolutely buy it at $350. So once again, we have this PC that I believe was another one of these that was 2 years old. Let me find that real quick. Yeah, in fact, it was 2 years to the month ago that I sold this PC for $350. And once again, it would still be a solid deal today. Now, it may not be an overly spectacular deal because you can find systems that can accommodate a 3 gigabyte 1060 and do a pretty good job of that. But $350 is very close to what I would be willing to pay for it today. And like I said, if it was on Facebook Marketplace today for $350, I would probably buy it. I wouldn't spend much more than $350 though. I'm not saying that $350 is a fantastic price for this system, but it's just good enough I'd probably buy it. And last up, at least for today, if you want to see more builds, then let me know in those comments down below. But last up is this Intel Xeon 1230 V3, which is very similar to an i7-4770. We have a Haswell-based Xeon, 4 cores, 8 threads. Again, very similar to an i7-4770, 100 megahertz lower on the base clock, otherwise virtually identical. The case here has pretty bad airflow if I recall correctly. It's basically just blocked off on the front. The intake for those fans on the front just pulls in from sort of the bottom where there's just a little opening. It's just not very good airflow. However, I will say the RX 580 8GB card is what really makes this system, if it was on Facebook today, just a fantastic buy if you're not planning to flip it, because if you're trying to flip it, it may not be a spectacular buy there. And right now it looks like an RX 580 8GB card is going for about $325 on eBay, so that puts us within about $175 of the total system. Now, the motherboard on this thing is a Z97 motherboard. It's a Pro Gamer. I think that's an Asus model. I could be 100% wrong on that, but I think it is Asus. I actually really did like that motherboard. And the RAM configuration there is 8 gigabytes. It's a 2x4 gigabyte kit, probably just 1600 megahertz. Storage, 120 gig SSD, a 1 terabyte hard drive. Yeah, the motherboard, I do have it in my notes here, is an Asus Pro Gamer. And again, Windows 10. The side panel is not glass. It is basically a tinted plastic, but the system itself is a looker. Everything actually flows together really well. It has, red RAM, has red accents on the motherboard. It has the red accents on the GPU as well as on the case. So it's actually a very cohesive look as far as a system goes. And because it has 4 cores and 8 threads on Haswell architecture, it's actually a solid option. And even today would be a pretty good gaming PC as long as you're not looking to play super high frame rates with modern AAA titles. But an RX 580 8GB card is still going to get you by in well, even modern AAA titles, it's just not going to give you super high frame rates, but you are going to be able to play your games with this PC. So honestly, I hope this thing is still up and running because this is a nice little computer, and frankly, $500 today, once again, I would happily pay $500 for this system if it was on the market today. I think this is actually the oldest one of these listings, and it looks like it was out of stock as of 10/10/2018. So it is 3 years old as of this October. So we're just shy of the 3-year anniversary of that PC being sold, which is just so depressing. The computers I sold 2 and 3 years ago are still either decent values today or even pretty good values today. So, you know, that's the nature of building PCs. Sometimes you go through periods where parts are cheap and living is good, and other times you go through times where parts are really expensive, like right now. And it's just really hard to put together a gaming PC for a reasonable cost. So there it is. Once again, if you like this video, you know, give me a comment down below. Let me know if you've purchased a gaming PC either recently or further back that was a good deal, and let us know all about it. Otherwise, you're just liking the video, sharing, subscribing. All those things are very helpful for the channel. You can follow me both on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.